Hello, good morning, happy Monday. Hello, Toto. How are you doing today? Let's continue our diesel course. And hello, Isitsu. How are you? Hi. You wanna come up and say hi? Zilby's thinking about it. If I approach him too fast, he runs away. So I brought up his food though, so that makes him happier. Zilby, wanna come over here? So just sitting across the room, staring at me and doing slow blinks. Okay, I think he wants. I think he's okay for me picking him up. All right, Cat wants to hang out up there today. Okay, so you just wrote a method that chains as mute to get mute, as mute, as mute. You feel bad. Interesting. That is a chain. Sounds fun. But if it compiles, that's the entire point of using something like Rust, is because then you're okay, no matter how ugly that is. You're writing your thesis. Well, good luck with the thesis. Okay, so I was kind enough to myself to leave off in the middle of a sentence, so it should be pretty easy to jump back into it. And so we are currently in the model.rs file section. And looks like, okay, so next we need to figure out what a varchar is. Following the same method, we can see that a varchar is a string. So now we have enough information to set the to create the model. Let's see what we have over here. This was, for species. Yeah, ID name. That's what it was, right? What were we looking at? Species, yeah. Okay, so now we have enough information to create. To create the species struct. So we go with this, right? So we have our model for species. Okay, so we haven't finished with the struct though yet, as we need to tell diesel. Okay, so what do we need to tell it about? We need to tell it that it's a species. So we're gonna do we're gonna derive debug identifiable, because it's a it references an entire row in the database. We also want to do diesel. Now, I wish that I can get autocomplete to this to sort of see what we have. Now that we have enough snacks for Zilby, is that how it goes? Snacks for Zilby? Maybe. I do actually have some snacks for Zilby. I don't want to like give him treats though without him doing something for it. So I don't know. I'll have to figure out like something to do for Zilby. Do I have? I don't have a clicker up here. Otherwise, I could do clicker training for him. Because that could be fun, doing some clicker training on stream. Also, everything looks different outside today because it snowed last night and early this morning. Oh, you were finishing the last sentence you left from last time. Oh, well, yeah. It only sometimes works. Now that we have enough, and then you finished it, sort of like an AI. You chose the thing that makes the most sense for the context that you're in. Which I guess makes sense, right? Everything should revolve around Zilby. It'd be like, okay, I just bought this diesel course from this Brooks Builds person. Let's see how it is. And then halfway through it just starts talking about a cat. Okay, so Diesel, so I believe I don't think that we need table name because it will figure out the table name. I forget the name of the functions that we can do here. Can we see no definition? So I can't do that. Wish it besides the getting started, is there a list? Wait a second. What was that animation? Oh, that's cool. You only do that on getting started. Oh, that's too bad. And then once you go into getting started, it doesn't do that again. Which is too bad. That's a really cool animation. I'm sad that they don't do that elsewhere. Okay, so I want to go find the models file. Okay, so we have table name, check for backend. So I think yeah, check for backend. Okay, so we need check for backend. Oh, that's not diesel. Those are just different. Oh no, it is diesel. Okay. Is there the macro is named diesel, right? It's not that diesel deriving them, is it? So if I look for like table name, it's not here. Re-exports. No, I don't think that's it. Maybe it is the Postgres type, okay. But I don't think that's exactly what we want. I'm just really curious where this comes from. No definition found, so I can't go there. Table name, no definition found for that either. So I can't go through there either. Maybe I can go there from the repository. So if I search for like table name, but there's multiple table names, right? Diesel derives model. Maybe that's it. Infer table name. It's not exactly it. Diesel table macro syntax. So what's the other one that we know? Check for backend. Let me also search for that. Ooh, not in this file. So not necessarily in this repo. Check for back. Pressed escape accident. Search in this org. Okay, diesel derives model.rs. Okay, so maybe table names. It's not what I want, but closer. So that's where it creates the model from. So we need it's a macro. And this is actually just a struct and the functions on the struct. So that's not exactly it. What was it? It was check for backend. The documentation for getting started. I mean, it's either documentation or other things using it. I'm not seeing like a macro definition for it in here. A queryable macro. Selectable has it too. Okay. From the derive insertable. Right. Okay. So where was that? I passed it, right? See the queryable macro. Let's search for that. Queryable. Trait. Module queryable? No, just give me everything. I can't remember when I do macro, when I search for macro, can I parse macro input? Is this it? So diesel derives. It is documented in the docs. Okay. And selectable has it as well. Where is it in the docs? Is it? This is diesel docs. So if I search for queryable traits derive macro, where do you go? Okay, he's not right under my chair. Can only be derived for structs, not enums. Yeah, okay. So consider using If you see errors while loading data into a struct that derives queryable, consider using derive selectable. These will check for backend. Okay, optional field attributes deserialize as type. Examples, we have queryable, partial equal, debug. But is that what I want? Selectable has it too. I guess I want to go see like where all the options are. It's like where are all the options for this? Where it goes inside of the diesel macro. Okay, so here's a bunch of options, but not all of the options. The options are the attributes section in those derived queries. But they weren't all, well, I'm looking for like something for them all together, right? So optional type attributes, check for backend, instructs the drive. So yeah, so basically the next section here is we want to be able to say, we haven't finished this with this struct though yet, as we need to tell Diesel more about how to map the struct to the table itself. We can do this with a series of derived macros. See identifiable to see what those options are for the one you're working on right now. Oh, okay. So identifiable. Which is all under, come on, do the thing. What was it about website supposed to load in 3 seconds before we just get bored and start looking at cat videos? Okay, that was weird. I don't know what happened there. Okay, right, so here's where we're gonna do primary key. Okay, that's good. And then if we go into diesel associations, and I specifically want the derived macros, associations and a derived macro, an identifiable. That's it? Oh, because like belongs to is yeah, we're gonna have to do that soon too. Note that in addition to the belongs to annotation, we also need to derive associations. Right. Yeah, because okay, yeah. Oh, this is just relationships between multiple tables. So identifiable is from why do you take me to Prelude? That's Prelude. Huh. Go to the Prelude. Okay, so I actually can see from Prelude. all of those. Structs, PG connection. Okay, so all of these are just traits. Derive macros. Here we go. Identifiable, insertable, queryable, selectable. There we go. Okay. So the way to go find them is go to Prelude, go to the derive macros, and then we can select from these and then select more of these that make sense. And so, okay, got it. So we can do this with a series of derive macros. First, we'll start with debug. Okay, first we'll start with debug because it is just helpful. In case we want to print out what this model. But then after that, we have some. Oh, what was? Right. So then, okay. So then we choose from here. Queryable if associations if we are doing a. Okay, let's. Okay, next we need to choose which derive macros specific to diesel we want to add in. Okay. We are interested in identifiable is one row in the database. Queryable is to load. So we're interested in identifiable and queryable. And selectable? What is... Oh, you're doing queryable and selectable, but then I remember that it actually has us do identifiable in here too, eventually. When did it have us start adding that in? Oh, identify, let's see, can I find it? Oh, there, it's not in there at all. Interesting. I love how it just implements these. Okay, so we have identifiable, queryable, selectable. So identifiable. Basically, we have a primary key. And then we have some things for this. Okay. First, we'll implement the identifiable derive macro. This macro tells Diesel that our struct relates, refers, equates, I don't know if equates is the right word. Is references? No, that's not the right word either. That's an overloaded term. This macro tells Diesel that our struct model, we'll just use models. We use it in the actual word that we're building for. Models a single row in the table. Crash Systems, hello, how are you doing today? Does Diesel let you specify the key to use for data retrieval? MariaDB MySQL doesn't always pick the best key. Specify the key to use for data retrieval. I don't know. Are you talking about? Because I don't think I've done that before, so I spend a little bit more time in the higher level areas, so I'm not sure. You're not talking about like a primary key, like choosing which primary key you're using, right? It's something else, I think, but I'm not really aware. Like select from table where thing equals this and thing 2 equals that. You have 2 keys, thing and thing 2. Oh, then yeah, I don't know. I've never gotten that low into a database before, so I have no idea. From my understanding, Diesel is sitting much higher on a stack and is using behind the scenes a driver for interacting with MariaDB and MySQL. So they're probably going to be relying upon whatever that driver is doing. And I usually focus on Postgres, so I have no idea what the driver for MariaDB or MySQL, or even if it has the ability to do those things, to customize the keys. The engine will pick one and use that for searching the table for results. If one key is a char, another a varchar, the keys will have different performance. Interesting. So maybe. The answer is maybe, but I don't know. This course is going to be more of like sort of an intro course, so I don't think that, it's too low level for an ORM. That's my guess. Now, that being said, this is Rust, so a lot of the ORMs might actually go that low level, but I haven't really dug into the source code of Diesel for that side of things. So I'll keep an eye out for it, but I don't know if I'm ever going to stumble across it by accident. Okay, let's plug in you. It's only a problem for you because you have 300 million plus row tables. Oh yeah, that could do it. I do have a couple tables at the day job that I'm at that has something like that. And what is it? It's I was trying to think about like what tricks we've done besides some like simple indexing tricks. I've not for this company, I've not like pulled out some of the more advanced stuff like materialized views or anything else. But I've never really gone into like key based stuff. Like usually I stay at the topper level, like just choose a better index or choose an index at all besides the ID or the primary key or whatever it is. And then that usually increases performance enough. Or something as simple as how about we just turn off that that trigger that runs on every single query that's just killing all performance everywhere? That was a fun one to find. Okay, so what are attributes available to this derive? Diesel. Okay, so these are they derive attributes? Is that the technical term for them? Optional container attributes. Okay, so looking at that, we'll also need to install some container attributes, which goes there. What? 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 Did you? I'm confused. Okay, optional container. I don't know how I set the URL to that. That's cool. Looking at the documentation, we'll also need to implement some container attributes to customize the like to refine just that. So we'll do table name. In this case, we don't need primary key. Oh man, triggers are killer. Yeah, trigger. So triggers, for those of you who don't know, a trigger is a little function that you can put into the database, and then on a specific action, it triggers another action, which sounds really cool. And when you first learn about it, there's all sorts of fun things you can do. Like, for example, there's a default trigger that Diesel adds in the migration, which sets the updated at field if you've set it on an update for a column, or sorry, a row. That being said, if you set it incorrectly, or if you like just have something that does too much, everything's fine until suddenly it's not. And if you've forgotten that you've done a trigger, it's kind of hard to debug them and sort of like figure out what's going on. It's a thing. The update timestamp, yeah, that it does seem pretty cool, but the problem that I've always had is trying to figure out a good way to do automated testing, CI/CD, and other stuff with triggers, because it's one of those things where once it's out there in production, it's really easy to forget that they exist, and it's also easy to just say, I'm just going to update this like this in production. What's the worst that can happen? Ooh, okay. Procedural macros derive macro helper attributes. Okay, hold on. Let me open that up. So that was in Rustling org reference. Do I already have that open? Yeah, doc Rustling org. So I can just search for procedural macros. Is this a different thing? Okay, fine. I will open up chat on this computer. Oh, it's from the book. Oh, that explains that. Okay. Little arc. There you go. Derive macro helper attributes. Got it. Okay. So it's a helper, derive macro helper attribute. Okay. So we'll also need to implement some helper attributes Let's go back to you and you. Okay, so drive macro helper attributes, namely, okay, table name specifies a path that a table this type belongs to. The path is relative to the current module. If this attribute is not used, the type name converted to snake case with an added S is used as table name. Okay, so maybe I don't want to say this exactly. So looking at the, looking at the documentation, there are some helper attributes that we may need to use. Let's go over these helpers for identifiable to see if we need to use them. Okay, first one. Can I get a link to this one? No, I can't. Okay. Diesel table name path to table. This helper is great, is needed if the struct diesel cannot figure out what the table name is. By default, it takes the struct name, in this case, species, lowercases it, and adds. Now, converted to snake case with an added S. Okay, so lowercase and adds an S to guess the table name. This means it will assume that our table name is species, which is incorrect. So we can use the table name helper to set it. Okay, so then that's where we do table name equals species, like that. Okay, cool. You ran into a client that wrote queries that parsed the output and returned formatted HTML for their web app, and they couldn't understand where the database was slow. Yeah. Slow. Yeah. It's fun. And the queries were doing all that stuff too. There's a lot that databases can do. And there's a lot of really cool things that databases can do. And then there's a lot of things that databases should not do. And just because they can doesn't mean it's a good idea to put everything in a database. That being said, I have met database, developers who are very specialized in databases and just want to throw everything into a database. It is fairly cool what you can do with it, but not always the best idea. Okay, so there's table name. Next up, primary key. Okay, next up is Diesel primary key. This, let's see, by default, Diesel will guess that the primary key is a column named ID. If in this case, we that is correct. So we don't need this. Okay, so we don't need this helper. Column name overrides the column. Okay, so then we have these ones. Finally, we have which allows us to override the name of a column and turn it into something else. Again, we don't need to do this, so we'll ignore it. But it's good to know that it exists. XQC, hello. How are you doing today? DB analyst or something. I mean, yeah. And then there is Spacetime DB, which I still haven't checked out. I've heard really good things about it. Okay, so which allows us to override the name of the column and turn it into something else. Again, we don't need to do this, so we'll ignore it. Putting this together, our model struct or our species struct looks like. Okay, so all I need is the table name, so we just have this. Okay, there we go. We aren't finished with species yet, though, as we have a few more derive macros to add to it. Okay, queryable. This is for being able to query the this is for being able to query a table. So we need to add this in too. Does Diesel let you run a join? Yes, Diesel lets you run a join. It if I remember correctly, it requires that you do inner join or no, left join. It's like a left join and a right join, I think. But yes, it does have a join method. You lost your mind for a second and wondered why I couldn't find the search button in your editor. You switched to Z weeks ago and somehow you were still expecting VS Code. Oh, that thing where your brain is like doing one thing and then we're constantly giving ourselves what is that called? What is that code? What is that called? The there's a thing in your brain where when you like expect one thing but something else happens, and then you're like sometimes your eyes will actually see the one you expected for a second and then it'll just become like really weird. It can actually cause dizziness in some people, like as their brain has to like do like a quick like, oh wait, no, reset what reality is, figure that out. I there's a word for it and I forget what it's called. So like D something. But yeah, sounds like you had one of those. Cognitive dissonance. Yes, that's it. That is it. The dissonance part I had right. I forgot about the cognitive part. So CD. We aren't finished with species yet, though, as we have a few more derived macros to add to it. Next up is the queryable. The queryable derived macro that allows us to, or that tells Diesel that we want to be able to query this table. And of course, this derived macro also has some helpers that we want to consider. Now, I believe that some of their helpers are, let's see, deserialize this type, okay. So we have that. Instead of deserializing directly into the field type, the implementation will deserialize into type. Then type is converted via try into the field type. By default, this derive will deserialize directly into the field type. So can you show us a real example? If we want to map a query to our struct, first we use derive, queryable, okay. Expected. Just get the first user. Oh, I see. Okay. So Diesel deserialize. So this is a field attribute, lowercase string. And so lowercase string takes in a string and it's going to call the into on it automatically. And it looks like that's the only one. So has one helper that we want to consider, deserialize as type, is a field macro that allows us to create custom custom types that the into method will be called at runtime to convert the type from the database to whatever type we want. Check out the code in the example. Documentation, linked above. Okay, can I get a link to it directly? No, not really. Check out the code in the example documentation, linked above, as it shows a really nice way to convert, I guess I convert strings from the database into lowercase. During, like, I guess, like, after the query happens. After the query happens. or as the query happens. As the query runs. How about that? We don't need to do that though. So we'll ignore it. Okay. And then I believe last is selectable. Implement selectable to implement selectable. It needs to know the corresponding table type. To be able to, okay, so okay. Lastly, we need to add the selectable derive macro in order to allow us to select fields when querying the database, when querying the table. Archification, hello. How are you doing today? It's been a while. Are we Brook Zerking today? Yes, we are indeed. We're creating a course for Diesel in Rust. Okay, so you also have some attributes. Okay, we have a bunch of attributes. Again, we have some helpers that we want to consider. So I'm going to add this in here because just to show, we already have added this in. So is a repeat from the identifiable derived macro helper. Since we already added it, we don't need to add it again. Okay. Check for backend. Is technically optional. However, as the documentation states, if we set this, we'll get much better error messages. Therefore, it's recommended to set it. Okay, what's next? Column name, some column. So this is override the column name again. So is a repeat of, right? Is that a repeat? Yeah, column name, some column is another repeat. Is another repeat. And we are ignoring it just like before. Embed specifies that the current field maps are not only a single database column, but is a type that implements selectable on its own. Is that something like a JSON type? Is it possible in a database to actually have an entire, like, I guess it would be like CSV or JSON, right? What else can selectable? This is selectable, right? Oh. Oh, selectable is the one I'm on right now. Okay, hold on. How would a thing write selectable? How would something like, if a field is another struct which implements selectable instead of a column, you can annotate that with diesel embed. Then all fields contained by that inner struct are selected as separate tuple. Fields from an inner struct can come from a different table as long as the select cause is valid in a current query. Oh. So it's actually, it's a field. Oh, basically, if you want to do another query at the same time for something else, then you can. I wish that they had an example for this. That'd be amazing. I want to see what they suggest as like good use cases for this. I can think of some ones, and maybe we should play around with this. So embed, I want to explore the, I guess it was like what, diesel embed. That's how it is. Yeah, diesel embed. Drive macro helper for selectable. To see whether or not I want to add something into this, because that, like, my initial thought is, could we get away with some join type stuff with selectable with embed instead of an actual join? Because if I could do that, that's some pretty cool stuff. Like, I can say, okay, I want to get all of the authors, but then I just go ahead and get me the books too. Maybe we can do some cool stuff with that. I don't know. Maybe. When you're writing your Discord bot, a friend suggests I use a database for storing user data. I looked at Diesel and a few other Rusty DB things, ended up just storing the data in JSON files. The files were named after Discord user IDs, and each user had their own file. Seemed to work fine. Figured if I ever needed more speed, I could mount a RAM disk when the program starts. What would be the speed benefit of a database in that kind of situation, and what situations would a database be good for? I've seen a lot of Rust use TOML because the tooling for Rust itself uses TOML. Yeah, that's a really great question. And the what basically you end up using is an in-memory database plus what is it called when you're storing it for like later use, persistence. You basically have a in-memory database that you persist to disk, and you just create it yourself, and it's perfectly fine to do something like that. There's like an ECS system, for example, entity component system. A lot of games use something like that. That's sort of like an in-memory database of the state of all of the entities, where they are, and you can do stuff to that. That's an in-memory database at all. In-memory databases are really, really, really fast. Like, they don't have to go to disk right? To like every time you're doing a query or anything else, it's just in memory and then you go off on that. And in fact, you generally only worry about cache misses, which is a game type thing if you're trying to run all of your stuff in 16 milliseconds or less. But the counter to this is it uses a lot more memory. If you end up having a ton of Discord users, then and if you're storing all those into memory and you have a lot of metadata for each user too, and every Discord user has to be in memory regardless of whether or not you care about every Discord user, you could potentially run out of memory in your server, and that would cause a problem. So now you need to only load from disk which users you want to use. And then usually it's like, oh, the user logged in. Let me go ahead and load their information now. That could take a little bit more time, right? So yeah, at that point, you can start doing tricks like RAM disk and other stuff. But would that be more or less expensive than just using the normal database, which is really efficient at grabbing things from disk and handing them back to you to put into memory? And of course, then storing them back to disk again. So think about that. So yeah, it would be, but now you're paying for the RAM disk. And if this is something that runs in the cloud, that may or may not end up costing you more or less money. So as usual, it depends. Of course, right? Because like once you get to this point where you're trying to make architectural decisions, I mean, there's always benefits and there's always cost to every single decision you make. So I think a lot of times you just sort of default to a database because, especially if you don't know which direction you want to go in the end, that will cover like 99% of cases, and most people don't care about like, you know, a couple extra milliseconds of waiting for the round trip from the database. In fact, if the database is local to your system, it's even less than that. But yeah, like it's one of those things where you have to know what the use case is, and you also have to know what your scaling plan is. If you're on a server in which you're never going to have that many users, and you do some rough back the napkin math, and you're like, I'm never going to need more than, I don't know, like, let's say you never need more than a like 50 megabytes of RAM space, and the server that you have has way more memory than you need. Why would you ever care? Like, it doesn't matter. And then if you ever get to that point, well, now it's time to write a version 2.0 of your bot. So things to consider, right? Now, if you're writing this for like, you know, hundreds of thousands of users and you only ever know, like only a couple of them are in line at one time, you don't want to go back to hammer that disk over and over and over again. That's why like web uses database all the time. Like that's just the default thing to go to is a database. But yeah, in the end, once again, it depends. I would also argue that like the ability to think in terms of that and sort of like see what the repercussions are, that's getting you much closer to senior level, because you're actually thinking in strategic terms for something as opposed to just pulling out a tool. So like even if you're junior level, even if you're still in school, I would recommend trying to think through things, even if you don't know all the like, even if you have a whole lot of holes in your logic and you don't know where to go for it, at least trying to think about it exercises that part of our brain, which is going to help you get to the senior level a lot faster. Okay. I added in that. Okay. So let's head back to here and we'll continue on. So diesel embed is something really cool, but we need to figure this out. If you purchased this course and are reading this, then Brooks forgot to update it. Let him know on Discord, and he'll discount the course, give you something else for free. And he'll discount something for you. Okay. I always read through these in the end, so I shouldn't run into that. But I don't like to ever use when I put in like filler type stuff. I would rather use something that, like, if it got to production, is better than just like I've seen some people like do swear words and other stuff, and I don't like that. If that got into production, at least you'd be happy that it's like, hey, I found this thing. I now get some free stuff. It is easier to load a single large file than many small files, right? I can see how a database might be faster than many small files, but maybe it's closer to it depends between a database and a large file. But then we have to seek through a large file, seeking performance versus IO performance versus RAM. So, okay. Going back to my old sysadmin days, when you're copying or doing anything with a large file, you basically, well, okay, this is for like, it also depends if you're using SSD or actual like spinning disk drives. Like, for example, I just happen to have some spinning disk drives here. This is, how big is this? This is I know it's multi-gigabyte. Oh, it's okay, this is a 500 gigabyte drive. So one fun thing about these spinning disk drives is there's a bunch of platters on them, sort of like, in the middle, and then there's reader heads that have to go to it. So think of like the old like rotating table drives. We have to go find the space where the file begins, and it puts down, it starts reading the electromagnetic bits, and then it reads in a row until that ends. But of course, so if it's a single file, then it's all together into one thing, right? So it begins, puts down, and starts reading through it until the end. That is going to be pretty fast. If it's a bunch of small files and we haven't been paying attention, and we haven't optimized the disk drive, then it's very possible that it has to go find where the beginning of one file is, put your head down, start reading, finish that file, bring the head up, now go to another location, put it down, read the next file in. That sucks. That's really, really, really bad for performance. And that being said, an SSD doesn't run into that problem. So now you need to know, are you using the SSD or spinning disk drives? A lot of servers these days use SSDs, but you always have the option of using a spinning disk drive, which usually they give you a discount on, or if you want something really, 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 really large, they generally will have you use actual disk drives for them. We just need to make our own file system that puts the files on the platter to optimize for Discord bot speed. Well, like, that was, anybody remember the old like Windows defrag thing that we would do to like speed up the Windows? Like, oh, Windows is really slow, let's go and defrag, and it showed this like really colorful thing, and it ordered everything together. That's kind of what it was doing. It was finding all the files and then putting them together, so that way you wouldn't have to like move the platter, like move the head all around constantly over and over and over again. But with SSDs, that's not necessary at all. But that being said, like my Windows system, I have an SSD and a disk drive. Like I save the VOD, so I record these streams. I throw that onto the disk drive because that's so much bigger than the SSD, which is more expensive to get bigger. So, but once again, it goes back to that it depends type thing. And probably one of those things where it's going to depend a lot less over time. But yeah. Yeah, those defrag things were so cool. I'd sit there and watch them. Felt like I was watching The Matrix. I know. I do remember those. Those were pretty fun to watch until you realize they take a long time when you haven't done it in a while. So then you're like, okay, I'm going to set an alarm to do this every week. And then, yeah, I think only sysadmin kids like me were doing that constantly. We'd also break our systems because we'd constantly look at like really cool new stuff to do. It's like, hey, I can create a virtual drive and I get like 4 times more space on this. Not, and then you're like, huh, everything's slower now. It's like, oh, right, because I've just created a virtual drive that compresses everything constantly. Yeah, that sucks for gaming. Okay, select expression. Overrides the entire select expression for the given field. It may be used to select with custom tuples or specify select expression equals my table, some field is not null, or separate tables. It may be used in conjunction with select expression type. Wait. If the type is too complex for Diesel to infer it automatically, this will be required if select expression is a custom function call that doesn't have the corresponding associative type defined at the same time. What does that mean to me? Can I do, like, my brain is thinking, can I basically just say, hey, I want to do a select star from, but then it's like, actually, well, actually, you meant this. So like you're doing a well, actually from the database side. You remember defragging your toaster PC. Let's see. There's so many really cool PCs back in those days. It felt like they had personality and not just through LEDs back then. But also at the same time, they were the big giant beige towers too. Huh. Well, select expression type and select expression. I want to play with that too. Okay, so select expression. This. Okay, and then that's the end of you. And so select expression and select expression type. And then I probably want to put this into the name of the things. This is research for diesel models. There you go with that. Okay. We don't need those. So, and then that was selectable. Was that everything? Yeah, selectable was the last one. So that leaves us with the model struct. Okay. I want to do queryable and selectable. selectable. I basically said that's not right. I wanted to use check for backend. Right, wrong type of thing. I wanted that kind of paste. Except that's the wrong one. To that kind of copy, that kind of paste. Okay, so we're gonna skip that. Okay, so check for backend, PG. And I don't need to override the column name and then embed and select expression. Okay, so that leaves us with the struct u. That. Cool. Let's repeat this for the table pets. Go ahead and try this now on your own. Or I guess here, probably don't need to say that. After okay, so pets. Okay, pub struct pets. We have pub ID. It's an I32. I probably wanted to look at schema and look at pets. We have ID, name, species ID, and last fed. Okay. So ID, name, species ID, last fed. So ID. Date times. Okay, so we need to go figure out date times. What are you? Timestamp Z. Nullable timestamp Z. Nullable timestamp Z. Okay, so if I just go to you, Postgres type, we see what. Oh, it's going to be all the different. Okay, so we have the chrono feature. All right. Last time we chatted about this, we had a lot of discussions about which time feature to use. We have chrono and time. Huh, interesting. Not feature chrono. Chrono? I'm confused about that. Okay, feature chrono. Oh, wait. Okay, so if you have feature chrono, go to show these as docs. Chrono naive datetime. But if you don't have feature chrono, also show the chrono naive datetime. Interesting. Probably to say like, hey, you need to go do chrono. But if you have feature time, okay, so we have two choices for time. Let's also go and take a look at Diesel and see if they have any suggestions for what they prefer date times to be. First off, do you have any guides on time? I mean, not really. Okay, API docs. So if I look for time, then there's Chrono. Where would I go to find out which one they suggest? Because like there's also Chrono. There's a lot more information here. This feels like all the time that they're spending on it. Ooh, but they have this security revisory that we talked about. You built a new PC about 2 years ago, and you still have the mechanical drive from the old PC in here next to the new SSD. It's good backup drive. Maintaining a fresh Linux install on that drive. That way, if my system ever breaks, I just boot from the other drive and chroot to fix it. Nice. You all remember the CDs? Any of you remember Knoppix? I used to just carry that around with me and just like, okay, well, I want a Linux system and I only have a Windows here. I guess I'm going to boot into Knoppix. Chronos is the god of time. Rust lets us use Chronos. Obviously, Rust is the best language because it has control over the gods themselves. Ultimate Boot CD. I don't remember ever use that. I use Knoppix. I don't remember UBCD. You haven't heard Knoppix mentioned in a long time? Yeah. I'm not surprised. There's no reason to ever use any of those things because all of the Linux repos that you boot from at least all the ones I've ever looked at. No need for something like Knoppix. For those of you who are too young for this, there was a point in time where you couldn't just boot Ubuntu from a thumb drive. In fact, you probably didn't have a thumb drive that was big enough to hold any Linux system that was of any value. And so Knoppix was one of those repos that was never meant to be installed fully onto a disk drive. Instead, it was meant to be you boot from it, you do whatever you need to do to repair the drive, or you do some other stuff. Like it's a read-only system, right? Like a CD can't be written to. So you can put like security tools or some other stuff. You can boot a drive, like a disk drive that's been messed with or like potentially hacked or something like that. And then you can go and do stuff to it to sort of like investigate what's going on. You finish up with your stuff and then you reboot back into the main system. Not even CD-ROMs were bootable when Knoppix came out. You can only boot from a 1.44 megabyte floppy. I don't remember that. I was around during that time. I just don't remember that. So I started using it after it was allowed to be on CD. Oh, we have Tiny Linux today. Some people are supplanting the need for a bootloader, installing Linux directly onto their mobile flash. Yeah. Linux specific trivia. Yeah, exactly. Super fun trivia too. None of these things are needed. Like you can go around and you could just throw an entire Ubuntu fully spec'd out, like fully set up operating system onto a thumb drive these days, because you can get a gigantic thumb drive for dirt cheap, at least relatively speaking, and just go plug that in and boot off of that. You don't need any of these highly specific repos. Yeah, we used to call them that, didn't we? Linux repos. Core boot lets you set a Linux kernel as a target payload, literally boot directly to Linux from the onboard 128 megabyte flash. Oh, that's cool. Again, not things that I need anymore. All right, let's jump back into this. Security advisories in November of 2020. I do remember this was when everybody was yelling at me about using Chrono back then. Okay, so we had CVE 2020-26235 and RustSec 2020-0071 were opened against the time crate. Oh, it was the time crate. Quinn and Nur had found that calls to local time R may be unsound. Eventually, almost a year later, this was also made into a security advisory against Chrono as RustSec, 2020, which had a platform code similar to time. On Unix-like systems, a process is given a time zone ID or description via the TZ environment variable. We need this time zone data to calculate the current local time from a value that is in UTC, such as the time from the system clock. Time 0.1 and Chrono use the POSIX function local time R to do the conversion to local time, which reads the TZ variable. Rust assumes the environment to be writable and uses locks to access it from multiple threads. Some other programming languages and libraries use similar locking strategies, but these are typically not shared across languages. More importantly, POSIX declares modifying the environment in a multi-threaded process as unsafe, and getEnv in libc cannot be changed to take a lock because it returns a pointer to the data. Since version 4.20, Chrono no longer uses local time R, instead using Rust code to query the time zone from the TZ variable or via IANA time zone as a fallback, and work with data from the system time zone database directly. The code for this was forked from the TZRS crate. That's a fun username. Huggix. As such, Chrono now respects the Rust lock when reading the time zone environment variable. In general, code should avoid modifying the environment. So basically what they're saying is that Chrono 4.2 or greater no longer has the security concerns that everybody was concerned about up here. So Chrono is perfectly fine. Okay, so we can see that we need Chrono, and specifically, I think we want, let's see, so timestamp Z, feature Chrono. So we have naive datetime, primitive datetime. Oh, that's only a feature time. So if I just do feature Chrono, we get either naive datetime I can't tell what type this is going to be. Okay. The timestamp with time zone SQL type TZ with PostgreSQL abbreviates to timestamp Z to SQL from SQL. Okay. Naive datetime or datetime. That's it. Naive datetime. Those are our choices. I was pretty sure that Chrono came with its own types. Yeah, Chrono comes with its own types, but then Diesel gets to make the decision about which of those types to use, right? And so it looks like Chrono is going to use the naive date time, but we have to add that in. Okay, so let's repeat this for the table tets. Did I just say table tets? That's wrong. Let's repeat this for the table pets. We do have two additional, or I guess like, okay, so let's just repeat this for the table pets. Let's ignore those for right now. Or maybe I don't ignore them. We do something like that. Okay, so first off, table name. Oh, so you need to be pet. And then we don't need table name at all. And then this will work just fine. Okay. So notice that we don't need the table name helper, since the if we lowercase the struct name and add an s, we get pets, which is the name of the table. We have, oh, this should be an option last fed. So option like that. Okay, so last fed is an optional field. So it gets an option here. However, because the type is a timestamp z, we need to figure out what that turns into. Following the same methods as before, we can see that we have two choices using the time crate. Using the time or chrono. The chrono crates. Let's see. In this case, we're going to use the chrono crate. Therefore, we need to add the chrono feature to Diesel in the cargo.toml file. Oh, timestamp Z, did I do that wrong? Timestamp. Oh, TZ. You're right. I did that wrong. TZ, like that. Thank you for that. Okay, therefore we need to add the chrono feature to diesel and to cargo file and in the cargo.toml file. So let's go ahead and do that over here. So if we go to cargo.toml, diesel, features, Postgres, this would be so cool if this would tell me what the features are right here, but I think we just do chrono. We're good to go there. Let's also restart you. Wait until you're done, and then our choice is the naive. Date time. Yeah, chrono naive date time or chrono date time. And I want to find out which of those I care about. So documentation. So we have date time as one. So date time there, and then there should be a naive date time right there. All right, so date time. ISO 8601 combine date and time with time zone. There are some constructors implemented here. Okay, so we get that, and that gives us some cool stuff. Now, how about you? ISO 8601 combined date and time without time zone. Okay, so because that's without time zone, date time, so according to the chrono documentation, let's go back to chrono like this. According to the chrono documentation, the naive date time, I guess that's date time, includes date, time, and time zone info, and naive date time, just includes date and time. Since I care about time zone, since we care. Time zone will use date time. Okay, date time. So back to you. So I don't want naive date. I just want date time. Why? Oh, diesel doesn't. Okay. Diesel does not auto export this does it. So if I were to search for chrono, nothing here. Time? I mean, there's some SQL types. Okay, so you're going to set what the type is, but you don't re-export. Oh, it'd be really cool if I could see all of the re-exports. Is this all the re-exports? From everything? Because if I go into, let's say, modules, let's go into Prelude. You don't have like a time or anything. Prelude. You have another re-exports here. So I really wish that there was a central place I can go to see all of the re-exports at one time. That would be really nice. Because I don't want to have to go into like every possible module and say like, okay, is there a re-export? I guess I probably don't need to care about that. So like, probably not backends, not connections, maybe data types. Okay, no re-exports there. Okay. Deserialize doesn't have that. Maybe something specifically in the PG. No, don't see any re-exports there. The prelude we already looked at. Okay, so all right, so we need to pull in chrono too. That's what we're finding out. So if we come back to here, I'm full screen. So here we're going to do a cargo add chrono. I don't need any feature in here. 0.4, so we are above the minimum because it's 4.2. So that means now we should restart the LSP again. Use chronos date time. What is that generic supposed to be? Oh, it's the time zone. Okay, so is it true? Would it be better to use naive instead? Because how do I know which time zone it is? Because, okay, so it takes in a time zone type. Are there any types that I can implement this? I wonder if we should be using naive then. Fixed offset. What are you? I don't like any of these. Do you have any suggestions for what I should use? Or should I, because like I kind of want, just for the simplicity, to go with naive date. Because with naive date time, there is no generic that I have to hand to it or no type specific. And that might be better to use. So many deprecated things. Let's Rugmat, hello, how are you doing today? What am I building? A course for diesel, and we have a timestamp feature. Like, we have something with a timestamp. Could go naive, change it later if you find a reason to change it. Yeah, I think that might be the way to go. So let's change you. According to the chrono documentation, date time includes date, time, and time zone info, and just includes the date and time. So while it sounds like we would want to use date time, we would need to pass in the what is it, time zone? Is this chrono? Yeah, we need to pass in the time zone. We would need to pass in a time zone. A time zone struct. Let's see. And this is a course to teach people. Are you teaching about time zones? Because that could take some time. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Times suck. Times suck. Like, I've actually heard some senior developers suggest just store all time stuff as milliseconds since the epoch. Ignore time zone stuff. Ignore all that things. Just deal with that and not have to worry about it. And I've actually seen, I've worked in some databases that's where it's been set up. And as much as like it might be cringy to do that, it does work. So that's a thing. Okay, so we need to pass in a time zone struct. Okay, so we need to pass in a time zone struct. A time zone struct. Since time zone is out of scope for this course, we're going to use the naive date time. It's not cringy, it's KISS. Changed my mind. I mean, that's also very possible. We could just go, keeping it simple. Okay, so we're going to go with naive date time. So naive date time, like that. Get rid of you. Okay, so let's do this one. Okay, so naive date time. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to copy like that. Okay, so giving with this decision, we can now set the appropriate type for the last fed field. Okay, there we go. However, we aren't done yet. We have a relationship to worry about, to think about, to consider. The species ID field, no, you don't get to just update whenever you want to. The species ID field, I even have Discord in, what is it called? Streamer mode. You would think that would cause it not to just auto update. Whatever. Okay, so however, we aren't done yet. We have a relationship to consider. The species ID field gets is going to require that, or I guess, okay, so the species ID field, we know, how about that? We know that the species ID field means that there is a relationship. And we'll probably want to do a join at some point. Diesel doesn't know this unless we tell it with a derive macro and some helpers. We can use the associations. Where was this? This was identifiable. Come on, keep going back. Oh, I opened it directly from here. Not you. We're in modules, the prelude. Where's the prelude? Associations. There we go. The associations derive macro. for the helpers. Okay, so then let's add this in here. So associations. At least one belongs to. Okay, so associations. Unlike the other derive macros, the associations one has a required helper. Okay, so belongs to user tells a diesel which table this it's not a field, it's the entire container, right? Okay, so tells diesel which table this one is related to as a parent-child relationship. For example, the pets table is a child of species as a species, so it gets the belongs to helper. Let's see. In this case, okay, so belongs to helper. So that way, this makes the helper do, so we do diesel belongs to, it's a function, this belongs to species, and then it's going to search for species ID. So lowercase with an underscore ID, right? Yeah, okay. So then you can give it an optional foreign key. M key variant allows us to specify the name of the foreign key. If the foreign key is not specified explicitly, the remote lowercase name, type name with appended ID. Okay, so do that. This makes helper. Okay, all that we need to tell diesel that it is related to the species table. Note that we don't need to tell it about the species ID field explicitly, because by default, diesel assumes that the foreign key is the remote table. So the parent table name in lowercase with ID appended to it. Yeah, because then it would be like user ID. So, okay, I missed stuff. I got some weird time code in my bot because there's a command that records when the user ran it and another command that shows elapsed time since then. Easier to store everything in the same time zone because I'm just using it for elapsed. If I had to get the user's time zone for some reason, don't even know how to do that. I don't remember even saying time zone support in Discord API. Yeah, that makes sense because your code is running from a single place, which is where Diesel is. I don't believe that the bots run on client side, but on server side. So your time zone information would be from whichever Discord server that you were running in, which is, who knows where that is from. That could be literally anywhere in the world, or at least anywhere in your region. So yeah, that doesn't make quite as much sense either. But hey, your use case doesn't care. It just cares about relative. So as long as you're consistent, you're fine, right? Oh, Claude, hello. How are you doing today? Associative associations associate associated associates. At least I can say that. Okay, so we have all you. What else do we care about? So we have belongs to. We have the table name. Is yet another repeat. We still don't need this. And then finally, column, which again we don't need. Is the same as the other column name rename helper. We also don't need this. Okay, cool. Benriz, hello. How are you doing today? Why is it so difficult to build a Discord bot? I haven't built a Discord bot. I have it on my list to do something to build one for the community, but I don't know. I don't really know what to build for it, and I haven't really given myself the time for it yet. So I don't know. I can't answer that question. The people that I know that have built one, it's not necessarily difficult to build like a really simple Discord bot, but I think once like to do more advanced stuff, maybe it's the more difficult. I don't know. I have built a few Slack bots before, and those are pretty simple and easy to build and a lot of fun. So I would assume that Discord bot should be relatively similar, but I don't know. It might be very different. Okay, so, and that's it. And that's it. That's it for our table. I guess I won't create the new models. Okay, so that's it. That's it for queryable models. We'll return to this file later to add some specific insertable models, but we'll do that in the appropriate lessons. Okay, so we have that. That's good. Is there, okay, so create a diesel model in a model file, associate a model struct with a row in database, associate a model with another model. I think, let's see, associate with a model struct with a row in a database. That's identifiable. Set up a model to be queryable. So queryable, and then set up a model to be selectable. Okay. So all 5 of these things are now doable. We need to reread through these, but we have that section in there for those like the embed type stuff. So I want to play around with that and see what we can do. Now, in Diesel demo, did I destroy this demo? I don't remember if I did or not. More importantly, okay, so this is post type things. Do you still work? If I do a cargo run, yeah, I broke it. I broke it. Maybe we'll do it just in a Diesel course. Or I fixed the Diesel demo. I'm not sure. Also, it's 11:37, so I'm not sure I want to start doing this right now. I think, not here. I think I leave myself on this. So we do our research for this. So maybe a little bit of exploration stuff next time. Alareza, hello. How are you doing today? So yeah, I think that's going to be the plan for next time, to explore Diesel embed and Diesel select expression type, because I've not played with these 2 things before, and I would like to know if these are important for us and something that like an introduction should have. And even if not, like I can put in a note for like, hey, even though we're never going to use this in this course, you should be aware that you can do some really cool stuff with it. Because oftentimes that's something that happens, is you have like some more advanced stuff are like, yeah, you don't need this. But when you do, it allows you to do some really amazing things. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so that being said, I don't have anybody that I'm following who is live and is near our size. So I'm going to go ahead and end our stream. It is, let's see, today is Monday. Tomorrow, no stream. No, we're all here. Hello, Togglebit. How are you doing today? I mean, there's 16 of us here. The next smallest stream that I have that I'm following is 684 viewers. That's a little bit big. I'm doing pretty well. We're doing good. Let's see. Oh, and also hello, Groovy. Alariza, okay, you found me some time ago. You love the content, but you found them too long for no reason. You get distracted from what you're doing too often and make content like 200 episode Turkish movies. Yes. Unfortunately, yes. Although I do have some videos that are more focused, but they are far outweighed by these live streams that I do. So completely agree. Not having an editor doesn't help with that. And so every time I go and try to edit these down into something more focused, I run out of time for that. And I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to cut it up or not and just go with that. But I definitely want to figure out how to like maybe make more focused cuts in the future. I'm just don't know how to do that and make it good. So maybe something. All right. Ooh, RX Rob. He doesn't even show up on my recommended. Let me search for that. RWX. let's see, Bonsai CLI framework. Oh, 45 users. Yeah. Let's go ahead and set up a raid for that. Looking at what Golang. Okay, cool. Let me set up a raid for this. Come on, raid. And it is RWX Rob. Okay, there we go. Cool. Yeah, everything looks good there. Well, thank you again, Elrozar. Hope to see the success. I hope so too. And I hope that you have a great day. All right, everybody. I am going to go ahead and take off for the rest of my day. I've got some more work to do type things. I'll be back here on Wednesday and Thursday mornings to continue with this. We're going to do some explorations into this diesel stuff and continue making the course. So with that, I hope that you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye.